Good evening, everybody. My name is Lori Oristano James. I'm the president of the Monticello Central School District Board of Education. I'd like to remind everybody that this meeting is being recorded. And welcome to our general portion of the meeting on April 6th of 2021. I'd like to entertain a motion to move out of executive session made by Mr. Crumley, seconded by Ms. Greco. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? So ordered. Just very quickly, I'd like to remind everybody that we do have a public comment section of our agenda. Obviously in Zoom world, it's a little difficult for us to do that. So we have created for you an email so you can send your comments to us at comments@k12mcsd.net. Again, that's comments@k12mcsd.net. Please make sure that your name is there. Your address is what's needed. Not your email address. We see your email, but if you could put your address, that's what is in our policy. We've been reading everything into session anyway, but that is helpful for us for our record keeping purposes and being able to respond accordingly. With that said, and we've come out of executive session, I'd like to ask everybody to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. I'd like to remind everybody to please silence all of their electronic devices, except for the ones they're currently on. And moving back onto the moment of silence that we have on the agenda. Moments of silence are always difficult, but when it's one of your own, while currently an employee of the district, it's a little bit close to home, to say the least. It is with regret and sorrow that we recognize Raul Sanchez this evening from our Transportation and Buildings and Grounds Department buildings. So our thoughts are with those people in those buildings who have been working with him. He was our head mechanic. And in a tragic situation that occurred, we are saddened to hear of his passing. And with that said, we send our condolences to his wife, Elba Diaz, and to their children, their two daughters, as well as his parents and family and friends and colleagues. It's always very, very difficult to say goodbye to somebody who we knew. But our thoughts are with the family, with the friends, and those extended members of his family through his Monticello Central School District family. With that said, I'd like to entertain a motion of silence so that we can pay a moment of respect to Raul. Thank you. Thank you all. Moving on the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to move the agenda to the table made by Ms. Greco, seconded by Mr. Crumley. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? So ordered. Dr. Evans, any additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda?
There are none at this time, Madam President.
Thank you, Dr. Evans. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as is, entertained and made by Mr. Crumley, seconded by Ms. Holmes. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? So ordered. Approval of the minutes of March 18th, 2021. Motion to approve those minutes as given. Made by Ms. Weiner, seconded by Ms. Greco. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? So ordered. Moving on to our student board member update. We're so excited to have our second in command of the student board member updates, who is Dylan Price, who is never second in command. Dylan, if you would please be so kind to give us your report.
Well, thank you very much. I got the call up to the majors tonight from Kayla. So she gave me a load of notes to share with you guys. But the first is a pretty big one. The expansion of in-person opportunities for the district and the high school itself. 9th and 12th graders, especially at-risk students, are prepared to come back. There's going to be a lot more in-person opportunities aside from the extracurriculars that are already offered. And that is really, really phenomenal to hear. And it's something that I know a lot of students are going to take advantage of when the time comes, and something that has gone over very, very well with the student body to this point. So kudos to you guys. Thank you guys very much for doing all you have, especially you, Dr. Evans. Another big thing, free internet access is being given to families now. There's more information on the school website, and that's a huge thing as well for the community. And summer youth employment is now taking applications as we get into the summer. A lot of job opportunities for kids to take advantage of, and that's a big thing that nice to have with everything in the world right now. And a massive, massive thing. This is SUNY application week. Seniors are in the final strides of the college application and decision process. I know she won't shout herself out, but Kayla is also down to a couple phenomenal schools as well. And she serves a little shout out on that, but we are down to the final strides for the senior class as they get to make their college decisions. A very, very fun process, and something very cool. Next week is the end of the third quarter, which we're getting down to the nitty gritty for the decisions. We're also getting down to the nitty gritty of what has been a wild year, the third quarter. So now we are down to the last quarter. A lot of progress, I think, has been shown from a lot of students this quarter in how things have adapted and really, really found a groove, I think, after winter break. So really encouraging. And lastly, the chorus is recording and preparing for virtual spring concert that was occurred today. They started the first song. They're getting ready for a spring concert. A lot of the band, I believe, is getting ready as well. And then the sports are continuing to go strong. We are getting to the final weeks of the fall season and getting ready to transition into the spring season. Senior nights are coming up next week for a lot of sports. There was a cross country meet today that I participated in myself, and a soccer game. So it was really, really cool to see kind of a return to normalcy. There's some spectators there, socially distanced, and it was really good to see. And yeah, a lot of really great opportunities coming up. Another Kahoot night coming up in a few weeks for Academy of Finance. And they also just announced a drive-in movie night that will be sponsored by Fair Oaks Drive-In, occurring May 20th. So a lot of great stuff in the works for the high school and for the district as a whole right now. And happy to report out on all of that for you guys.
Thank you so much, Dylan. The thing you did forget to report out about, though, that I am going to go there for on behalf of the board is wonderful job with the musical. Dylan had a major role in that, and so he did an excellent job, and we were so glad that you were able to do that in your senior year. Are there any questions from the board with regard to the report out from student? Okay, Dylan, I just want to remind you, I am not ignoring your hand. You are not you have input in the board meeting, but are not given the right by the state to actually vote. So that's why I can't call on you, but I see your hand there, and I didn't want you to think I was missing you. Okay, because your voice does matter. So moving on from there, we thank you for that, the budget presentation. Dr. Evans, I'll turn it over to you for you to do your thing.
Thank you, Ms. Oristano-James, and good evening, everyone. Before I turn this over to Ms. Fela to present kind of the final pieces of our anticipated expenditure side of the budget, we have some late-breaking news that the state legislature and the governor have reached a state budget deal. This afternoon, we found out that we were receiving some pieces of information, such as the governor's original proposals that would have consolidated expense-driven aids into one aids category. That was not included in the new budget package. The legislation would provide a $1.4 billion increase in foundation aid funding for school districts in the upcoming year. It also has language that is calling for the planning of a fully phased-in foundation aid formula by the 2023-24 school year. So what that means is the state will finally fulfill its financial obligations under the state constitution for fully funding public education. And lastly, just within the last 10 minutes, I received word that the new state aid runs have been published. So once Lisa leaves this meeting and gets some rest, hopefully, tomorrow she can start digging into what our state aid will look like for next year. And we'll have that ready for you at the next board meeting, unless Ms. Fela, you have other information that you've been keeping from me. But I'm going to turn this over to Ms. Fela at this point. Ms. Fela.
Thank you, Dr. Evans. Janet, can you share the presentation, please?
Sandy, can you make me host again? Sorry.
There you go. You should be able to share.
Okay, so this budget presentation is general support / undistributed employee benefits and district-wide expenditures. And it says finalize the budget process because I was hopeful that we would have had a state budget before this afternoon or tonight, and we could actually have a final budget discussion, but that'll have to wait till April 20th, unfortunately. Next slide, please. Thank you. So by law, the board makes final decision. I say this every meeting on the budget to be presented to the public for voter approval. We solicit input, and our goal is to be as transparent as possible. We put everything out here by budget code, so if there are any questions, we encourage people to send their questions to comments@k12mcsd.net, and we will respond, but please comment in context of the budget presentation. Next slide. So I know this is a little difficult to see, but this is what's called undistributed or district-wide expenses. This section of the budget is the Board of Education, the district clerk, our annual meeting, the superintendent's office, and the business office on this page. The only one area that has a significant increase in these categories is for our district annual district meeting, and it's for the Dominion voting machines. There's maintenance, there's parts, there's all sorts of additional costs for the electronic voting machines that we have to absorb. So that's what that increase represents. Next slide. Continuing with the undistributed, again, auditing our tax collection, fiscal agent fees is our bond counsel, and then there's our legal counsel. We do have an increase in legal counsel for the upcoming school year, but we are entering negotiations right now with the MTA, and we have a couple other contracts that expire June 30th, 2021. So we anticipate some additional costs there. Personnel and public information services have stayed the same. Our unallocated insurance, this is our property liability policy and our student accident policy that we get directly from our carriers, and that is projected to increase slightly. We have our association dues, judgments and claims, and assessments on school property and refund of real property taxes. That's based on historical costs and information, and it's been relatively consistent over the years. Next slide. So now we have employee benefits, and the employee benefits number overall is a decrease, which is kind of nice to see. The employees' retirement system and the teachers' retirement system, those percentages have remained constant from the previous year. So there's no real large percentage increase there. So it's only based on salary increases for those people. And as more we hire younger employees and teachers in those systems, they're entering into a different tier in the retirement system where they contribute more for a longer period of time. So we're finally seeing the benefits of that tier 6 that was initiated probably 7, 8, 10 years ago. The other, like our health insurance, that actually went down. which was surprising. We checked that number 4 times over to make sure that we were accurate, and we're confident in that number. So I was very pleased that employee benefits is one of those areas that tends to increase, and it's beyond your control. But this year, this upcoming year, it's actually a decrease. And then finally, we have debt service. Next slide. Thank you. This is obviously our debt for different capital projects over the years. We have a construction ban right now. Its ban is a bond anticipation note. That is for our current construction project at the high school and the bus garage. Our fiscal advisors suggested you do a bond anticipation note until you're ready to do a serial bond. We anticipate doing a serial bond next school year in June. So that won't be there next year. It'll actually have serial bond principal and interest above will increase. But the rest of those numbers stay relatively the same. The transfer to capital, we can spend $100,000 on different small projects within the school and get state aid back on it the following year. So every year we put $100,000 in there to fix, doors, or we did a small asbestos abatement project this year. So we continue to make those small improvements and get our aid back in the following year. Next slide. I think that's it. So then we have our calendar for reminders. On April 19th, petitions for board seats are due to the district clerk by 5 p.m. April 20th, the board will adopt the 2021-2022 proposed budget. On April 29th, the budget is made available to the public. May 6th, we'll have our budget hearing. By May 11th is voter registration day. We mail our notices on the 12th, and our annual budget vote is May 18th, 2021. And our upcoming board meeting will be April 20th, where we'll have our state aid and our revenue and bringing it all together for a budget adoption. Any questions?
Any questions on this section of the budget? Ms. Jersey?
Was the decrease in health insurance related to the premium or the number of employees taking it?
It was more employees switched. We're hiring younger people and they're all taking individual plans. So that's where we saw the biggest shift, was from family plans of people that have retired to individual plans. Yeah, we were all, we went through that number 3 times over. I said, can't be right, but it was.
Any other questions? So, Ms. Fell, we thank you for all of your work on the budget. It's definitely been one of those scenarios where, you're still building that plane in the air. And that's going to continue. The board is certainly aware of the fact that we keep hearing about these funds that we're going to be receiving through these federal relief dollars. The reality is we don't know that those numbers are actually coming our direction. They stop at the state first, and we don't know what they're going to do and then delineate out. So the good news is that at least we have a better game plan of us before we say yes to a budget to put before the community, in the fact that the state has finalized a budget and you'll have a budget run in. We thank you for your fiscal leadership, your fiscal understanding in teaching us all what those numbers really look like. We have told you privately, but it's important for the public to know this board understands the work that you do and what it is that you have done for our school district to get us in good financial health, because that good financial health enables us to be able to give quality education to our schools, to our students, but more importantly, to make sure that there is a fiscal responsibility to the taxpayers. And you have consistently stayed well under that 2% cap. You have consistently explained the budget to us and the understanding of it. And you have towed the line and really taken that pencil, as Helen said when she first got on the board, let's get those pencils out and sharpen them a little bit better. And that has been happening. And we are so pleased with the work that you are doing and just want to publicly thank you. And I think that everybody, you can see by the looks on many of their faces around the table that we just wanted to say that publicly to you. And you have had to do that through a changeover in superintendents numerous times. And every single one of them has said in no uncertain terms the value that we have in you as our business person. So we thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any questions from the board other than where we were at that juncture? So Dr. Evans, can you tell us our next steps here with regard to budget?
Sure. So the news out of Albany does look very promising relative to our state aid funding. Again, Ms. Fela will crack into those numbers tomorrow and throughout the rest of the week. And then we'll start looking at them hopefully later this week, and we'll be bringing them to the board at the April 20th meeting. We recognize that that's a relatively short amount of time to adopt a budget, but we do intend to do that at that meeting. You've seen all of the expenditures over the past several meetings, and I'd remind the board as well as the community that if you go to our website and you click under the business office tab and then the budget tab, Courtney Bonfante has taken all of our administrators and Ms. Fela's presentations and clipped them off of this recording, so you can see them in these short 5 to 10 minute presentations if anyone's looking for more information on what we plan on spending our money on next year. And again, Ms. Oristano-James, an excellent point on the federal stimulus money. We don't know how that money is to be spent, nor do we know how much are we receiving. We have just received word that the state education department is going to put out an application process for school districts that is due by July 1st. So that will be coming in the very near future. However, that's kind of independent of this budget. And we have until September of 23, Ms. Fela, to spend that federal money. So there's a couple of years at play there relative to that federal stimulus money. But thank you, and thank you, Ms. Fela.
Thank you, Dr. Evans. Moving on from there, Mr. Crumley.
Madam President, I move that we accept the consent agenda as a group, F1 through L2.
And you want that for approval?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Seconded by Ms. Jersey. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? So ordered. Moving on to board roundtable. Anyone have anything for board roundtable? Okay, Ms. Jersey?
We had audit committee earlier this evening, and we got the reports for our third and fourth quarter, and everything, there was no discrepancies noted, and everything looked good.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Crumley?
Congratulations to all our staff that just got voted on tenure.
Thank you very much, Mr. Crumley. Nicely done. And moving on from that perspective, anyone else with regard to board roundtable? Okay, I had to switch glasses so I could read what I wrote. I had audit committee also, and thank you to those community members who also volunteer for that. I would like to congratulate the Monticello Central School District Music Department that received for the 12th year the NAM, which is the National Association for Music Merchants Award for the best communities for music education. The uniqueness of that award is it's not based upon what it is per se that the music department does. It's what we as a community and a school board do to support that program, and therefore allowing them to do what they're able to do. And that doesn't happen without them doing that. So we have what to support, and we're very proud of the music program that is that particular program is a national program. And my understanding is that this year it's about 670 school districts across the country. So we are one of very few districts. When you think there's 732 just in New York State alone, we're one of those 600 and I want to say it was 635 I read in the press release. So that stands very well for what it is that our school does in the music end and the community that supports it. I was proud and very honored to represent the school board in this community along with Dr. Evans gave us a report because he was on vacation because he's allowed to. But Ms. Fala was there with me and Dr. Ola Marks was there with me. I want to thank Stephen Lewis for opening up the facility and making sure it was prepared for this particular meeting, along with Courtney Bonfante, who was there, and also Mr. Frandino, because it was at Chase School. We welcomed our majority leader, Senator Chuck Schumer, to our community. And at that event, numerous county officials from our county, the bulk of the folks from our county, but also from Orange County and Ulster County. We were there to listen to Senator Schumer's presentation on the need for and the funding of broadband services in our area. The one thing that he did state was there were two things that were of note when he was speaking to us about it. One was the fact that Sullivan County, with all its faults that people may think it has and everything else, the fact that the entire legislative body came together in support of the need for this broadband and to create and design a program for this county to potentially receive funding for was marked as one of the high spots, the highlights in the state of New York. And the thing that we were noted for was the specificity of what it was that we did in surveying our families to be able to help that report move itself forward into an actual plan of action. So understanding that the work that we did in the school district to do that. So kudos to our people who did all that surveying work. We know Dr. Orla Marks, you spent hours along with the administrators. We know that Mr. Wagner was involved, Dr. Evans, just everybody who was involved. We thank you for all of that work. Now we will hold the majority leader's feet to the fire, because it's one thing to turn around and say these are wonderful things. We're going to make sure that we continue to advocate and make sure that we're getting what it is that we need. So thank you for letting me represent you at that. I do have a graduation committee report, sort of, kind of. The committee report occurred before break. We didn't have full information. We have a little bit more information, and I can tell you that there is going to be a visit to a local facility that I can't formally announce yet, with the intention of us being able to hold some form of an in-person graduation come June for our graduates on graduation day. So that is in the works. We're still waiting to see. Things change daily because of what state requirements are, not only for the schools, but for that facility. But things are looking good. And I'd like to thank Mrs. Mans and Ms. Alvarez, who are coordinating that along with the entire graduation committee. And we will continue to report out on our progress with regard to that. Last night, I had the honor of attending the EPIC self-care workshop, which was on Tai Chi, which I had never done before, with Jane Sorensen. It was very well attended. Our EPIC program has been doing some monumental work with outreach to our parents, and not only our students, which they normally do, but the parents through this pandemic, and programs to help them through the stress that they're going through. You know, we talk about the teachers, we talk about the students, but the parents also, or the caregivers, because in some cases it's the grandparents or aunts or uncles or older siblings, and the work that she's doing to help them have an outlet and a place to have a forum for them to discuss If you have not signed up for those, please do. She does a phenomenal job. She's got some great speakers coming in and great programs coming up. So please try to get yourself involved with that. I did attend the equity work group meeting as well. The equity work group is moving along and is still on track to present the findings of their work to help us build our equity policy that is required by law for us to add into our school policy. So we're still anticipating, and I'm just going to kind of take a fast look at Dr. Olermark's, we're still anticipating by June we're going to have something to present that policy committee is looked at and ready to go to the board, right? So we are still on track with that, and we thank you and the work of Bank Street, as well as all of the faculty and staff that are on that, but also numerous people from our community, from agencies and parents, and it's really been a very productive process for us to make sure that we're getting voices heard. I attended the Hudson Valley Arts Alliance meeting in which we spoke specifically along with something that was discussed in the NYSSMA Executive Council. We're advocating, as you know, and I know Dr. Evans will speak a little bit more about the spacing of students, the CDC versus the state, but in the music world and in the physical education world, they're still at 12 feet at CDC and state level. And so at the advocacy that we've been doing to move in that direction. That's pretty much what I had on the docket. So I thank you all for all it is that you are doing behind the scenes and continue to do accordingly. So moving on from there, we've got the reports of our principals. Anybody have anything they would like to share or add with regard to that? If I don't switch my glasses, I won't see your hands. So anybody, anything? Okay, I do want to, if I may just take a moment with regard to the reports. Dylan, you said it so exquisitely during your report, so I kind of want to piggyback on what you said. I want to thank the building administrators, the staff, the buildings and grounds, transportation, along with our central administration, and specifically under the direction of Dr. Evans. The hard work and the dedicated hours that you have put in to get a design and to implement what our next phase of our path forward plan will be has just been unbelievable. The amount of work that was done over spring break, where people gave up their vacation time to get things done, to make sure things were moving forward in the process. You guys haven't had a break since last year, March 13th. And you've just been going straight through and all the way through. And the things that have been done to make sure that you had a plan that was a viable plan, that is a plan that remains transparent, that had feedback from committees that had been formed throughout the year, the transition from what we had to open with based upon the data that we had at the time to where we have come. And understanding that the inclusion throughout the process of every stakeholder when available, and how to get a plan that is solid has just been amazing to watch. You know, the board does not create the plan. The board has oversight as to the district. The daily operations, which would include this, rest on solely with the superintendent and the staff and faculty that he works with on a daily basis. And things have not been perfect all the time because things are changing all the time. But your continued positiveness in making sure that you can provide our students, our parents, as much as possible within this crazy world with what we can do, and to do it in an open, honest fashion has been beautiful to watch. And in our opinion on this board, a breath of fresh air to be able to see that. Again, we're not always perfect, but the work that has been done has been quite impressive. And we will continue to update and continue on in the process of everything that it is that you do, that you've done for students and will continue to do as we continue to move even closer to more normalcy for everybody. So we thank you publicly. As Dylan had said it earlier, you just need to hear it from the board as well. We appreciate everything that you have been doing to get us to where the report is going to be tonight that we're about to hear. And it did not fall on one person. It was a team effort, and we thank you. So moving on from there, I hope I didn't misspeak. If anybody from the board thinks I misspoke, please, now's the time. I'm okay with that. But it's conversations that we've been having together. So I wanted to make sure that we made that public. Policy committee memos, there's nothing, am I correct on that, Dr. Evans? We're good?
That's correct. There's nothing at this time.
Okay, correspondence outcomes have been listed there. There were some questions, as we said, that came in after the ability to shift it to us to be able to read, but we want to make sure that answers were public, so they are available to the public there. Capital project update, Dr. Evans.
Thank you, Ms. Oristano-James, and good evening, everyone. Work continues to progress on our capital projects, both at the new transportation center and the 100-200 wing of the Monticello High School. If you're driving by that area on Route 42, you can see, kind of real-time progress going on at the transportation center. It's starting to take shape and look rather impressive, and we're really looking forward to that facility. At the high school, they continue to do work there, sometimes at the disruption of some classes in that area as they are doing work on the roof. I know that Mr. Wilder and the high school staff had to make some adjustments, and I want to thank Mr. Wilder and Mr. Lewis and the staff who have been able to adapt to that and then communicate back to our construction team about what our needs are to continue classes in those areas. There is, however, tonight on the board's agenda, there is work that was not in the initial bid specifications for plumbing and gas lines in the new chemistry rooms. That was omitted in the initial bids. That was caught by our plumbing contractors a couple weeks ago. And in order to remedy that and to allow that work to happen as designed, we need to process a change order. That change order is approximately $164,000. Should that change order be approved tonight by the board, we will file it with the State Education Department and go from there. This is not, kind of new work that needs to be done. This was work that was in the initial plans. It just was never in the bids that went out to contractors to bid on. So when it got to the point of we need to install these lines, that work had not been designed or processed within the bid. So now this basically allows that work to continue. So we're asking for board approval tonight so we can take action on that. And any questions on the capital project?
Ms. Holmes.
From what I know about the change order, I mean, this was a miss on the architect originally, and it was also a miss from our construction management team. And I guess I understand that this work needs to happen so that we have a working chemistry lab, and it should have been included in the original bid. And so we're not really paying extra. We're just paying now instead of earlier. But I guess I want to just note that, we need to keep on our architect and construction manager and let them know that we are not pleased that this big miss happened, and there's been other misses. So I just want to go on record as saying that.
Sure. Thank you, Ms. Holmes. And, just as so everyone's clear and aware, Ms. Oristano-James, Mr. Crumley, Ms. Fela, Mr. Lewis, our legal counsel, and I met with the architect yesterday to express our concerns about, excuse my dog, about how this was missed, and it was missed by primarily the architect, with the some oversight by the construction management too. And they have offered us some compensatory services for that oversight, and we appreciate that. They owned it. They recognized it was a mistake on their part. But we, again, voiced our concern about, we expect more from our architects. We expect more from everyone in the organization when it comes to doing quality work, and that doesn't, that extends to our architect and our construction management too. We're generally pleased with the work that's being done. However, this is an unfortunate little hiccup that we have to remedy tonight through the change order. But again, it's not work that wasn't in the initial project. It's just work that wasn't put into a bid when it should have been. So we're lucky in the sense that, the plumbers, they dug out the trench, they removed the glass pipe. Some of you might remember that work. And then they kind of didn't go any further because there was no work to be done further. They could have just filled that. They could have just gone on their merry way and not said anything. But then they raised the question, hey, how are you running, gas and water and waste in and out of these rooms? So that is happening at the ground level. So we're lucky in that sense. But I share your concern, Ms. Holmes, and that has been relayed to our architects.
Any other questions around the table? Thank you.
Thank you.
So continuing on from there, we'll shift over into path forward. Dr. Evans, I turn it over to you.
Thank you again, Ms. Oristano-James. So just to echo some of the sentiments that have already been expressed earlier, and then I'll get into some more details. I want to give an immense thanks and appreciation for our administrators, our teachers, our clerical staff, our paraprofessionals, our buildings and grounds and operations staff, who are making adjustments on the fly to increase in-person instruction in our schools for the final quarter of the year. This is a very busy time of year to begin with. It's an incredibly challenging time under COVID, and for people to, for them to be able to, I'm really impressed with the abilities and the efforts that they've made, but also their willingness to. We have teachers who are stepping forward and saying, I'm willing to take on a class if you need me to. I'm willing to move if you need me to. I'm willing to live stream if you need me to. These are all very much appreciated, and we recognize that they truly value the education of our kids. So we are making adjustments as we speak to set up schedules that will allow for, at the elementary level, K through 5 at Chase, Cook, and Rutherford, any students and parents who have opted in for in-person instruction 5 days a week, they will be receiving that beginning April 19th. That will cause some disruption to our operations. It might cause changes to teachers of students, and that was put clearly in the surveys that went out to families. So what I mean by that is there are teachers who will be who will have their assignments changed. There are teachers who will have their rooms moved and rearranged. There are spaces right now that are used for teachers to teach remotely from that will become classrooms, in-person classrooms. And all of that will require a lot of movement. It require movement that's typically done during the summer. So unfortunately, we need to kind of take a small step backwards before we fully open on April 19th in our elementary schools. So what that means later this week, unfortunately, is that Cook and Chase will be on remote instruction Thursday and Friday while we do that work. One, we need our personnel kind of focused on doing those moves and making those adjustments. And secondly, it's for student safety. We really can't be moving, big things of furniture around while students are in the buildings. So we apologize for the late notice and appreciate, parents' patience and understanding on that. But that's why we're switching those two schools for remote only this week. And then next week, we'll be doing similar transitions at Rutherford Elementary School and Monticello High School. And as you heard Dylan speak very eloquently about before, and I think he has a career in school administration, is the work that is being done at the high school to increase in-person instruction at least 2 days a week for any interested 9th or 12th grader because that's what our space allows. So I know that in my letter home to parents and on the website, it says we can't, kind of have in-person offerings for everyone. We can do that at the elementary level. We just don't have the space and personnel and capability to do that at the middle school or the high school. The primary reason for that is because 6 feet of social distancing is still the requirement in New York State schools, because the New York State Department of Health has not updated its guidance, and Sullivan County Public Health Services issued guidance to school superintendents that said it is honoring and following the New York State Department of Health guidelines on social distancing. If either of those agencies say that we can go to 3 feet of social distancing in schools, then we can make that adjustment too, and that would allow for more in-person instruction at the middle school and high school. But unless that happens, we cannot make that adjustment. Now, my colleagues and I in the county, my superintendent colleagues and I, under the leadership of Dr. Dufour, Sullivan County BOCES superintendent, have sent a letter to Dr. Zucker, the head of the New York State Department of Health, urging the New York State Department of Health to adopt the CDC guidelines that were issued, I think late February or maybe mid-March, I can't remember the date, that do allow for 3 feet of social distancing as long as masks are worn and there's other mitigation strategies in place in schools. So if that adjustment is made, we'll make similar adjustments. Know that as the year progresses, the later that adjustment is made, the more challenging it might become to switch to 3 feet of distancing. But that is something that we are, watching very intently to see where it goes. So the last thing I have to add to that is the board will be acting on amendments to our reopening plan that kind of document and allow for that switch to 5 days a week starting April 19th at the elementary school, as well as expanded in-person offerings in the high school. So any questions from the board?
Ms. Doherty?
Yeah, I just need some clarification. So just so that I'm aware, and thank you for your dog's barking, because that enabled for my dog Jock to get off my shoulder to go chase those phantom dogs. So anyway, it was so in other words, the guidelines that we have to follow are from the CDC. New York State decides to accept those to accept those guidelines from the CDC, and then to Sullivan County Public Health, correct? So those are the thing. Now, because, and I think that even I saw this on the news the other day, like Dr. Redfield, the prior CDC director, not the crying one, had said these are just recommendations, and then the states have their own agencies to go along with. So if I were to advocate for a change from the 6 feet to the 3 feet as a citizen, in order for us to comply, I would advocate either Sullivan County or the state?
Or both?
Okay, so in other words,
our understanding is if either of those said that 3 feet of social distancing in schools with masks is allowable, then it would be allowable in our schools too.
Correct, and then that would give us more room as far as liability issues and things of that nature in the future.
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to be clear. So
yeah, that's correct. One small caveat to that is even in the CDC guidance for meal times, you have to have 6 feet of distancing. So you can have, according to the CDC, you can have 3 feet of distancing with masks during the day, but if they're eating together, you have to go back to 6 feet. So that's, a kind of a headache and a challenge for our administrators to work out. But, I just want to put that out there too, that, when we start getting into the nooks and crannies of this work, there are things like that pop up.
Well, yeah, that's what I also think is confusing is the general public, even if you just watch it, I happen to be a news junkie, but if you're even just watching the regular broadcasts, it's like even the nursing home thing, you have some people, some governors that chose to go with the CDC, but then there's others that didn't, You know,
Mhm.
we do have, but the state can step in. That's what's confusing, is the state can step in and mandate as opposed to just recommending, correct?
Yes, and just to a little bit, yeah, that's correct. And a little bit more to that point. So if the CDC puts something out there that's advisory
Mm-hmm.
and the state guidance is silent on it and the county guidance is silent on it, then we could use that CDC guidance as in our reopening plan. But
Right.
if the state and the county have something as specific as you must have 6 feet of distancing and masks, then we have to follow it.
Right. Yeah, right. Yeah, that's what I think. I mean, personally, I think it's way too many layers of government, but it doesn't matter how I personally feel about it. I just have to worry about the responsibility as I sit here as a representative board member. Okay. I might have questions more as we go on. That's all I could think of for now. Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Does anyone else have any questions? So Dr. Evans, if you could just clarify one other thing. I know that it's, you know, with regard to the high school, that it was not only just a spacing issue, but a huge difference between the elementary schools and our secondary schools is licensure. Could you
Yes.
explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so at the elementary level, in order for a teacher to be assigned an elementary classroom, he or she has to have elementary certification. And that's typically K through 2, K through 5, 1 through 6, K through 6. There's different models of that, but all of our elementary teachers have one or more of those certifications. So if we needed to move, you know, an elementary certified teacher who's, let's say, a math interventionist into a classroom, we could do that, provided that he or she has the right certification. At the middle school and the high school level, there are a couple things working against that system. One is that you can't take a science teacher and have him or her now teach math. You can't take a social studies teacher and have him or her now teach English language arts. You can, you know, there's some limits you could do, but it really wreaks havoc on a schedule in trying to do that. The second part of it is both the State Department of Health guidance and the CDC's guidelines at the middle and high school levels recommend pods. So in other words, that students are kind of in these clusters that travel together and they stay together throughout the day. So we often get asked, well, how come you just can't do it at the high school and have them mix classes? Because that's not what the guidance recommends. The guidance recommends that you kind of have these cohorts that travel together. And we have that primarily at the middle school. And we have that primarily at the high school now currently. And that's also what's being developed in the 9th and 12th grade expansions on April 19th. So it's not as easy as just, you know, doing social distancing and running a typical high school schedule. We also have to keep in mind those types of pods that would be clustered together.
Thank you. And if we could address just one additional question, because I think that, you know, when we talk about the 6 foot in the elementary schools, and now we're doing 6 foot in the elementary schools, and we can get the kids in at the 70% of what's at this point said, yes, this is what 70% want to come into school. Why didn't we do that initially? Why didn't we just have that offering at the very beginning? So could you expand upon how those numbers changed? Because we weren't at that same ratio, and what we're finding out in doing the surveying work and such with regard to why we are where we are today to be able to make this decision.
Sure. There's a lot we didn't know about COVID-19 in schools back in August when we did this initial plan. We didn't know the risks of transmission. We didn't know, you know, whether our mitigation strategies would work. We didn't know whether remote instruction would work or not. And I think the jury's still out on that. But, you know, we recognize that it's not as good as in-person instruction. So there were a lot of questions going into September that we didn't have answers for at that time. I think the biggest question that's been answered is schools have not been found to have significant transmission rates if mitigation strategies are followed. And mitigation strategies means daily cleaning, social distancing, mask wearing, And I want to thank our staff and our students who have abided by those daily temperature checks, daily screening, who have worked hard to make sure that those happen. That's not an accident that there's low transmission in school. There's some real dedicated mitigation strategies that happen every single day. It's a teacher reminding a student to, put your mask up over your nose. It's a colleague reminding another colleague to put his or her mask on. It's colleagues, practicing social distancing by kind of gauging where they stand amongst each other. We now know that that works in schools. We know that because we haven't seen schools, widespread transmission of COVID-19 in schools at either the local level or the national level. So that, along with the vaccinations being provided to any interested staff member in the Monticello Central School District, when we couple those along with the weather getting nicer and our ability to open up windows and increase and enhance ventilation, it's kind of this perfect storm of those things that allowed us to say, hey, if we know all this stuff, what can we do? And so then we began looking at, how can we make this work? We remeasured our classrooms to have kind of a standard 6 feet of social distancing across elementary classrooms. We're asking a lot of our staff. We've asked a lot of them over the whole year, but the past couple of weeks and the next 2 weeks, it's going to be a big lift on our staff, but I'm confident that they can do it, and most of them seem willing to do it, and I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Artie?
Yeah, that actually from that comes to mind a few things I forgot about. Now, when you, just to go back a little bit too, because that seems to be on the generic pieces on the national level, what people talk about is getting that they had to push this enormous bill through Congress because it had all this funding to get the schools reopened. But that's kind of disingenuous, because am I misunderstanding it that you said the state has to put out an application, the schools have to put in an application process to receive some of this stimulus money?
That's correct. The only federal monies that we've received as a school district were the initial CARES Act monies that were put out last June, and we just started receiving those last month.
Okay.
We yet to receive a penny of the December federal relief money. We have not even been told what our allocation is on this last American Recovery Plan Act. There's been published reports of $10 million, but we received word from State Ed that that's not reliable. We have heard from State Ed that they will be issuing allocations and an application to access those funds later this spring.
Okay, so basically and then a lot of these recommendations that you have to follow, you're really not allowed to, you really can't, none of us can really have an opinion on, because we have these mandates. I guess because the only settled science, which there's a question if there is such a thing, is that they've shown to be the most effective in mitigating, which actually puts us into a very difficult position, is the air filters, the filtration systems, which our schools as old buildings could use a definite upgrade on that for various different reasons for health purposes. That seems to be the real, in my opinion, and they haven't really, that's a big job, and B, won't know if we'll be able to have enough money to really implement that anytime soon, correct?
Right. Yeah, our ventilation systems right now are at capacity. They are monitored regularly. They're maintained regularly now. Stephen Lewis has them operating as best as we can with the models that we have.
Right. Filtration, I guess, is what I mean. Like, because you could say, obviously there's that seems to be just practically the one method that seems to be work, because you don't hear a lot of COVID spreading on airplanes, and they attribute that to the air filtration system, because you're in a tube like right next to each other.
Yeah.
And they're not. Yeah. And I mean, trust me, there's no social distancing. So in order to be completely safe, that's what I'm saying. It's just that they seem to be changing the goalposts. They're making these decisions and mandating us to do things on inconclusive or science that's kind of, you can go either way with. it just seems like it's a lot of boxes to check off in order to safely move forward. I just wanted to get clarification. Sorry about my diatribe. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you, Ms. Doherty.
So, and Ms. Doherty, if I could just go there, and I know I've brought this up before, but I'm going to say it because this was a board that had vision. And we several times brought to our community the need for our upgrades of our buildings. And part of those upgrade plans of that initial, that very first initial $110 million that everybody scoffed at, and what are they doing? What are they thinking? Included reopening a building that would have given us additional 6-foot spacing to be able to put students and teachers into. And we said, if we ever had we kept referring back to 9/11 as if, God forbid, never anticipating a pandemic. So that was the first. And the second thing, and most importantly, was the upgrade of the filtration systems in every building in the district. We said that several times over. And now we're looking at, the situation. In hindsight, it's always 2020. And I get that. And the community, needs to make decisions on its own, but, with regard to what it is that they're going to give us direction for when it comes to a building project. But we may wind up having to spend dollars that we don't get state aid on now, or anything back to us to still get that work done, because we have to get it done eventually. We have to figure out how that's going to fall out. And as you know, we have been talking as a board about what that plan of action down the road is going to look like. And one of the things we were glad to have the conversation with Dr. Evans early on in his stint of his first year, that we just keep saying we're going to have to write a book for him, but is the conversation around what that planning is going to be coming out of this pandemic, and how we get those visions done so that we don't ever have to worry about the scenario for our kids and for our families in the future. Again, we have to get it done. We have to deliver that message more clearly to the community, more clearly in understanding, whatever that case may be. But we had tried to do some of this work prior to, and hopefully this has opened some eyes to the work that we still need to get done, and that we're still going to go towards. So
the only other thing I would add thank you, Ms. Oristano James. What's happened over the course of the year, the infection rates in September were very low. And then we got to November, and they went, they ticked up, and then they were through the roof in January. So all throughout that winter, the discussions were at the county level, at the state level, should schools remain open at all? Right? You remember the whole microcluster guidance, and if your rates get this high, then you're gonna have to do testing. So we had to keep pace with that. We had to have meetings. It was, pitched to my colleagues and I in the county. Should we go on like a 6-week shutdown from Thanksgiving to Martin Luther King's holiday? And they did that in other counties. We did not. We had some closures during that period, to be very truthful, but we did our best to try to stay open. Those closures were because we didn't have the staff available. We did not. We stayed open. There were school districts that were completely shut down. And there are school districts now that are just coming back online to have some level of in-person instruction. So it was really just a lot of learning along the way about, what is possible, what can we do? And then, as an organization, taking that learning and saying, all right, so how can we improve this? What are our opportunities here? And that's what we're exploiting now is, what we can do.
Yeah, I do want to say, and I know that it's very difficult and it's very frustrating. And I can't imagine the parents that have to make childcare plans. And I would, if I had to teach a elementary school kid at home, especially my own, I wouldn't be able to do it. So kudos to the parents out there that have had to do this. And I also want to say too, which is a big theme on the national news, is the teachers unions, but we haven't had that problem. And I really think that they deserve a shout out for that. I'm very proud of our staff and the things that they've had to overcome. And on the national level, they're having a lot of problems with that. And we've been pretty lucky. you've alluded to that as well. But quickly, I'm sorry. When you said pods before, I'm going to come off like a total idiot before. You're talking about a group of people, not a pod, like a
No,
physical.
humans, children.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure because I was like, okay.
Think of a cluster of students that would stay together, like an elementary class.
Right. Because at first I thought it was those like tents that the music kids have, and okay, all right. I know I look like an idiot, but I just want to make sure.
I'm sorry, not making it clear.
Thank you.
So thank you. Any other questions around reopening and all of that information? There was a lot of good information there, and we thank you again. Thank you to Dr. Evans, your leadership along with your central administration. Dr. Ola Marks, there's a special place in heaven for you because you have done more of this contact tracing than anybody else. You have just been on top of this with those building administrators, Ms. Fowler with the financial end of everything, and then going down to all of the building principals, assistant principals, the directors throughout the district, the faculty, the staff, the transportation, the custodial staff, the teachers' aides, the secretarial bargaining unit, the librarians, our instructional technology folks, just everybody just coming together to bring us to this next moment. And it's only a moment. And we will continue to do what it is we need to do to move forward. And we thank you for your work. It takes a village, and this has been a village, and we thank you all again.
And our nurses.
Our nurses. I'm sorry, because they're school nurse teachers, the majority of them. So when I say teachers, I think about them as teachers right away. You have all been incredible, and the work and the work of the folks in the community who have been, our support staff, our SROs, when we've needed medical assistance, the ambulance, mobile medic coming in and providing and helping and, doing all of those things. It's been amazing what has happened. I've always said one of the joys of living in Sullivan County is we may not be perfect. But when we need to come together, we do. And I thank you all for all the work that you've been doing. With that said, moving up to upcoming events, there's a listed calendar of all the upcoming events there. Again, check out things that are going on online and things of that nature. There's a lot of stuff there. Community events, we're expecting to see more stuff happening there as the nicer weather comes in. And we're up to questions and comments from the public. Again, I will read into record the policy. Board of Education recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and matters of public interest. In order to permit the fair and orderly expression of public comment, the following rules shall be governed and will be administered by the presiding officer. Please note that the first public comment period, 45 minutes maximum duration, will be at the beginning of the meeting, a period of 15 minutes maximum at the end of the meeting. Either period may be extended by majority of votes of the board. Neither public comment period is a time for public discussion. If necessary, the community members will be contacted for follow-up. Again, if you wish to speak, as I said earlier, please, and we do know that we have some people who are watching this meeting possibly afterwards. We actually have between 300 and 400 at each meeting, where when we were live and in person, we were lucky if we saw 20. So we're so glad that people are watching and finding out what's going on in the schools. We thank you for that. If you do have a question, please make sure we have your name, your email. We'll obviously have, because that's how we're getting it, address and telephone number, which would normally be on our sign-in list. Prior to the comments, you'll state for the record, which I will do on your behalf. Comments are limited to 3 minutes or less per speaker, and the speaker may not yield their time to another speaker in order to extend time. No speaker may comment or identify any particular student or employee by name, position, or situation in his or her comments. All comments are to be directed to the board president because of the way it's happening. So I'm not going to read the other things because of the way we're doing it. It happens online that way. So I do have Ms. Kaufman, I hope you don't mind. I'm going to combine your two into one because I quickly glanced at them. So I'm going to start first with those. So in no particular order, Ms. Kaufman is asking Kelly Von Kaufman is saying, hello, why are the fourth graders having to take New York State tests this year? What could possibly be measured after going through a year like this? What is your purpose in opting into them? I feel that without standardized instructional modes, there should not be standardized tests at the end of this year. Is there any consequence to the district if students opt out? Dr. Evans or Dr. Oler Marks, who would like to take that one?
So first and foremost, we're required to offer the state tests because the U.S. Department of Education has yet to approve the New York State Education Department's assessment waiver. We are, however, students have the option of taking them or not. So there's no, the accountability measures have been, we've been given a reprieve on those this year. But according to the U.S. Department of Education, schools are still required to test kids annually in grades 3 through 8 in English language arts and math, and science in twice in that span. So no student is required to take them. Students may opt out of them. Parents may opt their children out of them without any type of consequence, or any ill consequence towards the school or the district or the student.
Thank you, Dr. Evans. And also from Ms. Kaufman, hello, thank you for sharing the news about going to a 5-day week option starting April 19th. How wonderful that our district will be offering 5 days a week for K-5 students. My question is the need for clarification of these statements. The first bulleted point is all Monticello Central School District elementary students will either attend 5 days per week in person or remote. The hybrid cohort AB model will no longer exist, in conjunction with, while not every student will be able to attend due to scheduling or space restrictions, all Monticello schools will be open for in-person instruction 5 days a week. Does this mean that all K-5 students will be able to attend, or not every K-5 student? Dr. Evans, I can answer that if you'd like.
Every interested, at the moment, after our survey, it showed about 70% of our elementary parents wanted their children to have 5 days a week of in-person instruction. We can accommodate them. We cannot accommodate 5 days a week in-person instruction for every student who wants it at the middle school or the high school level. So at the elementary level, the answer is yes. If we had 100% say yes, I don't know that, but at 70%, we can accommodate that. Correct, Dr. Oler Marks? Okay.
Thank you for answering that. I just figured you might be tired of saying that tonight or today, because we were discussing it earlier today. So thank you. This one comes from Danny Schwartz. I'm not seeing location. Hi, my name is Danny Schwartz. And a mom of someone who's in second grade. I'm sorry, I can't read the name because that's identifiable. I am so excited for school to finally be reopening full-time. A couple of questions. One, how are you deciding which kids will be reassigned to different classrooms? I know from an active parent whose child attends virtual in school every day possible. I would not want him to be moved in classes. He has a relationship with his teachers, and it would be awful if he was to be moved at the end of the year. Number two, as happy as I am with the school being reopened, I'm wondering what changed that you can now accommodate our children 5 days. I know that you were still following the 6-foot rule. So why now can they go back and not back in September?
So I'll start with the latter question first. And I think I explained that earlier, where going into the school year, there's a lot that we did not know about in-school transmission. And we, like many school districts across the state and the nation, went about it very deliberately, very cautiously, with being very mindful of everyone's health and well-being throughout. And then from November through January, the rates spiked, and there were discussions about whether or not schools should remain open at all. We did in as much as we could. And then with increased knowledge of very little in-school transmission of COVID, as well as the vaccinations that were made available to staff, that enabled us to continue to re-examine and expand upon our in-person offerings. In terms of the student's teaching the teacher, the parent should contact her child's principal for a more direct answer on how that's being done. Unfortunately, in this process, it will result in some students' teachers being changed. Who and how many, I can't tell you. That question is probably best put to the principal of that school.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Evans. I have another letter from Margarita Glazier. I am disappointed in the organization and planning of Monticello Central School District regarding school reopening. Why is it that other Sullivan County schools already returned their students back to school and Monticello High School still has not communicated a plan to the parents? If and when kids return, will they be able to move from class to class instead of sitting in one room all day? And will there be live instruction? In a rural community like ours with a smaller population than Orange County, I'm surprised it takes longer to figure things out. Why? Dr. Evans?
There will be live instruction for 9th and 12th grade students, as there has been live instruction for some cohort C students throughout the year. So that will be expanded upon beginning April 19th. In terms of whether or not they probably won't be changing cohort groups. There will be some other things put in play. But Mr. Wilder is still finalizing those plans. But after speaking with him this morning, and as you heard Dylan speak to earlier, the school is on track to doing that. I will direct the parents' question to Mr. Wilder, and either Mr. Wilder or Dr. Ola Marks will respond to her with more specifics.
Thank you. And the last letter in this batch, and I thank you, Ms. Kasamasima, for explaining to me the pronunciation of your name. I appreciate that because I didn't want to butcher it again. Thank you so much for sending it that way. So this is from Nicole Kasamasima, who's an Emma Chase School District, Emma C. Chase building mom. Now that the school will be opened on April 19th, 5 days a week, how will transportation be impacted? Will bus pickup and drop off times change? I'm hoping before and after schools will be an option, at least before or after school would be a better option than having no assistance for parents. Wouldn't you agree? Best regards, Nicole. So, Dr. Evans?
I believe Dr. Ola Marks will be talking about before and after school programming shortly, so I'll leave that to her. In terms of transportation, those pickup and drop off times might be affected. However, we will be in our schools will be contacting parents, or our transportation department or schools will be contacting parents with those new times once they become finalized.
Thank you, Dr. Evans.
Ms. Kasamasima might want to reach out to Mr. Frandino directly for more details on that.
Okay, thank you so much. Moving on to your report and updates, Dr. Evans.
So very quickly, I want to echo Mr. Crumley's sentiment and congratulate our teachers, our counselors, our teaching assistants who are awarded tenure this evening. They've done well under some very trying circumstances over the past year, and they've shown their mettle and worth, and there's some valuable people in there that we're happy that they're with us, and we hope that they stay with us for many years to come. And then my very last thing is our restoration planning is getting underway. We'll be establishing some focus groups in the next couple of weeks and having some critical meetings about how do we restore, public education in light of COVID and the, all the stuff that comes along with it and what we've been talking about, and align that with the board's goals and vision on making this a district of choice. So we're kind of bringing those concepts together, and we're still on track to having a presentation for the board by July. And that's it.
Thank you. Moving on to Assistant Superintendent for Business. So Ms. Thala?
I only have one thing tonight. It's the Eagle Creek hydropower settlement. Eagle Creek filed a tax certiorari for several properties in Forestburg and Bethel. Richard Baum has been representing the district in those negotiations, and a settlement has been reached. So we're asking tonight to have the board approve a resolution to authorize Richard to enter into that settlement agreement with Eagle Creek hydropower.
Thank you. Any questions around that from anybody? Okay, moving on from there, Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction.
Thank
Dr.
you so
Lamar.
much. So I just have one thing. There are 2 partnership agreements, the Healthy Kids Extended Day Program. I just want to, before I mention the particulars in those, just give a real shout out and congratulations to Dana Taylor for her work on this to get this up and running. There were many challenges in working through before and after care. So these partnership agreements are for working with healthy kids, and these are for 60 children in the before school program, which is from 7 to 9 p.m. AM, excuse me, and that's at 21 Liberty Street. And then the after care program is from 4 to 6, also for 60 children. We are working on getting an after school program set up at Chase School. We are still working through some of the staffing concerns to get the morning program, but we're going to start with the afternoon program, and that will run till about 5:45.
Any questions? Okay, Ms. Holmes?
When do you think that these are going to start?
Oh, we're looking to start them to be at full capacity by the 19th. So we're hoping to get, starting with 20 kids over the next week or so, and then be at capacity by the 19th.
And what about the one at Chase? Because we don't have a meeting until the 20th. Is it the same timeline?
Yes. Yeah. And that's not going to be, we're partnered in the same way, right? So this is a partnership that we're done. So we're trying to do that one in-house.
Gotcha. Okay. That's what
yeah, because we couldn't get Healthy Kids could not get a license to work down at Chase. So we have to self-staff that,
Gotcha.
Which is, where some of the challenges came from with Chase.
Thank you.
Sure.
Ms. Doherty, I saw your hand, and then Mr. Crumley.
Yeah, just for clarification, is that, so this is where we're at now. This is our plan for school through the closure, correct? There won't be any changes, or will there be any reason that the health department will that will mandate us to make any changes as we move forward?
Do you mean for the before to after program, or do you mean for the
no, in general,
school in general?
As far as everything, as far as our structure of this is going to be our life in Monticello Central School District. We're going to go to school where we had laid out. This is, in other words, if another case pops up, are we going to be mandated to close everything down from school
well, we on a case by case basis, we do mitigate, right? So that it is possible that a classroom may have to be shut down as people are quarantined, right? Or depending on the impact in terms of staffing, obviously the number of staff who are vaccinated can make a difference, but again, we just don't know in terms of how particular cases hit. But in terms of the plan, this is our plan for the rest of this year, but everything can change quickly, right? And so if there are changes from New York State Department of Health in terms of their guidance, then we're going to try to be as flexible as possible to meet that guidance.
Okay, so Dr. Evans, they're still sending. They haven't changed, even though they have. And I want to also extend a thank you to BOCES. That was a very well crafted letter. I think it puts a sentiment. I don't know if it's available to the public, but it definitely puts forth a good advocacy for a lot of what I think the parents and a lot of us feel in the community. So that is great, but they haven't changed any. They have a reopening plan, but they haven't changed your red zone box or orange zone box, whatever it is that you're talking about. So it could still, and I'm not criticizing. I just want it to be understood by the community that I hate that we have to, and it's not your fault, but I hate that we have to throw this plan out there and then any minute it could be ripped out from under them again. They haven't changed your working room at all as of yet.
No, they have provided, I believe, Dr. Lamarck's some relief for, if a person is a close contact and he or she presents valid vaccination information, then he or she is no longer would be quarantined.
Correct.
So
Okay.
that's happened. But you know, the times that we've closed throughout this year are because of we lacked the appropriate staff to continue to keep the schools open, or it was in our transportation department and we didn't have the bus driver, or it was here, or, you know, we had office staff complete in a couple of cases, the entire office staff, security and administration of a school was out. So it's all on a case by case basis. We just had 5 cases over spring break.
6.
6, I'm sorry, Dr. Ola Marks would know, 6, that included an athletics team. So it's still very prevalent. It's still there. So it's, as we get more kids in school, you know, that's still a possibility. And we ask parents to still kind of be on their toes relative to being able to make that switch.
Okay, no, I understand that you have these boxes that have to check off and you have to go by the state. It's just unfortunate, you know, hopefully with the vaccinations and everything will mitigate this. I feel badly for the kids that they get into this routine and it just might have to be pulled out from under them again. I was just hoping they would give you more room, because that's the other thing too, is that, which I've noticed is, yeah, the infections rate may up, but what listen, my husband is a cancer survivor. My mother has cancer. She's going to walk around with it until so I have to be conscious of this, but I also am not overly, you know, I'm not going to allow it to ruin, you know, this with worry. So I was just hoping that they, you know, I follow the death rates and the hospitalization, me personally, but they don't allow you to do that, to make determinations. In other words, I think it's really, if we don't have a lot of death rates or hospitalizations, that's going down. The infections rates may be going up, but the death rates are going down. The death rates, the mortality rates, and all those other things. People can get affected, but it's not necessarily killing them. There's a 99% recovery rate on this, but they're not allowing you to factor that in still, correct? Am I correct in assuming that?
The only so the CDC advises that if you have this rate of community spread, you should be doing these things. These are the considerations you should make. That's the red zone issue. Okay. The only decisions we make relative to switching schools to remote instruction are if, like, we're making these big transitions this week and next week at the elementary schools and the high school. But it's mostly because we don't have the adequate staff to have school open for in-person instruction. That has been the deciding factor in every case except one. And then that one case, county public health thought, let's give this a little time to see if other cases develop from it, because there were a couple cases that were close together. It didn't pan out. But every other case was because we didn't have enough teachers, we didn't have enough paraprofessionals, we didn't have enough security, didn't have enough administration, whatever.
Because they're being quarantined, or they're infected.
Yeah, quarantined.
But they haven't. So okay, so I understand that, and that makes sense. So the quarantine regulations are coming from Sullivan County or the health department, and so they're making that determination and telling you to your staff has to be quarantined. You're drawing that conclusion from what the county or the state is telling you, correct?
Yes. Linda, do you want to talk about how contact tracing works, please?
Well, in other words, what I want to be clear about is that it's not you, just Dr. Evans and Linda going off arbitrarily and doing this, that you are following it from the guidelines from the state of New York or the county of Sullivan. So the fact that it annoys me that you guys have to do that, I shouldn't really be annoyed at you. I should be annoyed at these guidelines that are being brought down to you, correct? Do you see what I'm saying?
I can't tell you how to feel, right? But I can tell you what we have to follow.
That's my point.
So
I shouldn't be mad at you, is what I'm saying.
Let's say there's a student in a classroom who is COVID positive. We report that to county public health. County public health tells us, okay, these are the specifications around who's a close contact. Collect that information, give us the contact info, all those names and numbers, and then they turn that over to state contact tracers, who then have a follow-up discussion with the individuals about, you know, were you in this classroom at this time and for how long? So we take that from New York State Department of Health and Sullivan County Public Health. We don't deviate from that.
Okay. And if you were to say, so what? I don't really worry about that. Then what are the consequences?
So the Department of Public Health gets a record of all positive cases.
Yeah.
So it's a conversation. It's not us saying we have a positive student, right? Sometimes they call us and they say you have a positive student that we don't know about yet. And so then they say, okay, you need to start contact tracing. So every case that happens in the county they know about, and they are in contact with us to ensure that we are following the regulations and the guidance. Yep.
And then they tell you that you have to quarantine your staff, that they should not be permitted.
We don't quarantine them. We just provide the contact list, and then the Department of Public Health quarantines. We do not have the power to quarantine. We just provide the contacts. And then the contact tracer contacts the contacts to engage in the question and the investigation. And then they make the determination as to who gets considered a contact and who gets quarantined at that time.
Okay. So until the Department of Health and until the governing agencies mitigate, lessen their guidelines, we could still be shut down at any time.
If we have significant numbers of staff who are quarantined.
Okay.
Yes.
Just so I understand, I'm not criticizing. I just want to understand it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And if I can piggyback, as that's going on, as many of you know, I, because of the work that I did with Dr. Evans, of my mouth really opening up a lot about teachers needing vaccines for us to get back to normal. You know that I became the co-chair of the Sullivan County COVID task force. Dylan, this message is for you because this is important to people your age. 16 and 17-year-olds can only get the J&J vaccine. There are 117 available spots open tomorrow at the college. So go start texting your buddies. Their parents have to give approval and be with them to be able to get the vaccine if they're under the age of 18. But they are eligible and it is available to them. So you guys just heard it first. I just got the message. Okay, go for it. Just to inform anybody who's seeking. With that said, moving on from there, Mr. Crumley.
I move we take action items T1 through T6 as a group.
I have a second for that, please. Made by Ms. Jersey. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? So ordered, Mr. Crumley.
I move we approve action items T1 through T6 as a group.
Seconded by Ms. Weiner. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? So ordered. Moving on from there, our correspondence information that's there, the articles that have been coming out, etc. Any questions around any of that information? Okay, we're good to go there. Give me half a second here. Okay, I have to thank you, Ms. Montez, for uploading these, but if I don't unload them, I don't know which ones I've read, so just give me a second. Okay, so second session of public comment. This is from Melissa DeSimone. Let me just grab where it is. There we go. I am very happy to hear our children will be returning to school 5 days a week. I wasn't sure how this was happening if we as a district are not following the changes recommended by the CDC to the 3-foot rule. If we are still following the 6-foot rule, couldn't we have done this from the beginning of the school year. Thank you, Melissa DeSimone. Dr. Evans, I think you had answered that earlier. So do you want to just respond again, or do you want to respond to Ms. DeSimone tomorrow?
I'll respond to her directly.
Okay.
I mean, it's what I stated earlier, but I'll respond directly.
All right. So this next one, it's there's two, and one is relatively lengthy. So give me a second. They're both from Miss Melissa Benjamin. I'll read the first one. In regards to before and after school program, I live in Wurtsboro. Last year, I dropped off my child at Chase at 6:30 a.m. for before after school programs. Without the program, I have not been able to send my child to school because I have to work in Orange County early. I know other parents in Wurtsboro community need before and after school programs. While having a program in Monticello is wonderful for many families, it fails to help families in the lower portion of the district in Wurtsboro. Why is it that this school building is unable to come up with a plan for before and after school program? Again, the lack of this program or any comparable one in the area is crippling for my family. Thank you, Melissa Benjamin. I also believe that that was answered earlier by Ms. Oler Marks. So some of these letters may, because of how the system works, may have come in after you had, or before you had gotten to answer it, but got uploaded here. So Ms. Oler Marks, we can answer that directly tomorrow. Is that okay?
Yep, perfect.
Okay. And also from Ms. Benjamin, good evening. Again, I would like to thank all the teachers and school administrators who have been working hard during this challenging time. Your efforts are greatly appreciated by many. I'm a high school teacher. I'm happy to share what my school is doing to get our students, including our high school students, back into in-person 5-day-a-week. One suggestion to overcome the certification issue you posed would be to provide full synchronous learning to all students. I currently teach classes with both students in my classroom and students who attend classes virtually simultaneously. While it is challenging for the teacher's perspective, it is important that we are committed to equitable opportunities for all students. We have also added additional shorter lunch periods in our schedule in order to allow for more social distancing in our cafeterias. I advocate that all learning should be synchronous. I do not understand how asynchronous learning has been approved for any grade levels, especially because the pandemic changes in education have now spanned over a year and COVID is not going away anytime soon. While I am happy with the district is working to get our elementary students into 5 days per week, I think everyone can agree that it is in the best interest of all students to be offered in-person learning environment. Again, I would agree. I would urge the district to visit other districts in order to see how they are making this work. We are all working in this trying pandemic educational environment. I know and continue to pose the same question, but the lack of before and after school program running on viable options in this community is hindering my family's ability to function, which she brought up in the others. So I'm just going to quickly skim this. Okay, so the rest of it has to do with the program that Dr. Oler Marks will continue on. Thank you for your time and effort, Melissa Benjamin. Dr. Evans, would you like to address any components of this, or would you like to put it into written format for the next meeting? How would you like to do this? Because some of this has been answered, so it's up to you.
I'll respond to Ms. Benjamin tomorrow.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure I got them all. I believe I did. Yep, got everything that's in there so far. Again, if anybody sends something who's watching, we will be happy to answer that as well. The system feeds into me being able to see it on the screen. So, and as you know from our earlier, we do publish so that everybody can see the answers. So your questions will be noted as well. With that said, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting. Ms. Doherty, seconded by Ms. Jersey. I thank everybody for all their work and efforts. We appreciate your time and effort in tuning in to see what's going on in your schools. And as always, with Monty Pride, thank you, everybody. And Dylan, make sure you get those results out. Entertain a motion. We had a second. Everyone in favor? Any opposed? Good night, all.
Have a good night.